Okay. There you go. All right, we're on the got you on the camera too. All right. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. No, I'm playing around. Yes, sir. and, and good morning and welcome into the Thursday morning viewpoint for this Thursday morning, January the 8th. And as I've been announcing, our guest this morning, Attorney Yusuf Salam. Good morning, Attorney Salam. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you, my brother. And in my case, I always have a double celebration. I celebrate the incoming New Year, and seeing that I'm a New Year's baby, I have a birthday to celebrate.
Yeah, belated happy birthday to you.
Yeah.
Now there's something different about your birthday, though. What was the story? I mean, doesn't it change in 1 year? I mean, what time you were born at a certain time? Well, at the bottom, you don't want to get into all that. How's your wife and family?
Hey, man, fantastic. Everybody's coming along. I had a chance to spend 2 lovely weeks with my wife, and most of my 17 grandchildren.
17 grandkids.
And 4 children. And
you got some great grands, don't you?
Went to Memphis.
Oh, did you? Oh, really? Oh, yeah.
This is my baby daughter.
Oh, goodness. Wow. Yeah.
It's had a fantastic time the last 2 weeks.
Well, that's wonderful.
Thanks for asking.
Well, there's a lot of people here, though, that still remember Kyria and your children and have spent time with them and did things with them. And so I'm sure they're wondering how they're doing. You know what I mean?
Well, most of them grew up here. I think my oldest daughter was 12 when we moved here, but the rest of them were relatively young. So,
this is home.
Yeah. It made an impression.
Yeah.
Some good and some negative in their mind.
Well.
I was a very, very controversial political figure, and I thank God for giving me the stamina, the endurance, and the disposition to handle that without a lot of rancor. But my wife and children are not the same.
Well, no, and I can understand it.
They took a lot, man.
Yeah, they took a hit. They took several hits, and I know that they don't
unnecessary.
Yeah, I do know because people get too personal and they dive too deep when we start having these different differences of opinion.
My children saw some of their best friends' parents try to destroy the family.
Yeah,
and that was well known, and they had to argue with these children who were their friend about the whole situation, and they fell out.
Well, that can be traumatic.
Yeah,
that can be traumatic on a young person and a teenager. Being caught up in the middle of political controversy too early.
Yeah.
Can really take you away from here if you're not careful.
Yeah, and so they had to spend most of the college adjusting, but to be honest, they had a mom with a different temperament, very steadfast and job-oriented. So all they had to do was, as adults, imitate and mimic her way of life, and they were able to get back on good foot.
Well, no, she was wise. I have a lot of love and respect for Kyria, and I always tell you, you're a blessed man because the two of you are evenly yoked, and you complement each other, and she supports you. And this is something that a lot of people don't understand in relationships. Sometimes the woman's out front, sometimes the man's out front, but the bottom line is being on the same page.
On the same page. And we made our bargain really. When we got married, I was about 22 and she was 23 and she was 19, and we understood each other. She's not going to be put in a position of being threatened as far as physical and economic survival. I understood that, so I took the position. I'm kind of a controversial and reckless fellow. Something can happen at me any time. So you need to go out there and advance your education. If we divorce or something happen to me,
Right.
you gotta wait to
Be independent.
That's right, to be independent.
Right.
And I didn't have a position being jealous of her as to how much she was making or comparing my paycheck to her. And that was not a factor. The only thing she had to concede with me, I'm not going to be able to stop this fellow from serving in a community sense.
Right.
I'm not going to be able
to do
it.
That makes it hard. That's really hard. It's hard for activists, community activists that are married. And I hate to remember it, but Medgar Evers is probably a perfect example of that. You know, although his wife carried on after he died, you know, but that it was hard. It had to be hard. You know what I mean?
It's hard.
You know.
So I just kept telling her, go back and get additional degrees and additional degrees.
Right.
And to be honest with you, she's in her senior years and is much more financially secure.
Right.
Than she's ever been.
As a result of making the right kind of choices.
That's right.
And preparing for this part of life.
And she's enjoying it, and she appreciates the fact that I encouraged her to do that.
Yep.
And I still encourage her. She's a very competent professional.
Right.
And right now they call her a nurse practitioner, but she really has the workload of an MD. She's been out there a long time in the medical profession.
Right.
She has a lot of experience. She served as an administrator, a down-to-earth, on the floor, hard-working nurse, nitty-gritty grind. So she understands every aspect of the discipline. And anybody that ever worked with her around here,
they know that.
Yeah, they tell me that when they come up.
Well, you know, now you look good, she looks good, and so that says, and I know, you know, for a fact that you guys have been health conscious all along.
Yeah.
You know, and that makes a big difference, you know, especially as we get older, being able to make the transition into our senior years. But if you're not healthy, you know, that's not a good thing.
Well, she even had a better situation than mine, my brother. She grew up until 10 under her grandmother in Montgomery. And her grandmother was a strict Seventh-day Adventist. And if you know anything about Adventism, just talk to Filoni about it. They getting a little loose now. Yeah. But back in the day, they were very health conscious.
Garden of Eden health conscious.
Yeah, that's right. They watch what they eat and everything. And she was very restrictive on my wife. But she ingrained that in her. And it was because of that she challenged me. Because of my runaway hedonistic lifestyle.
No, I hear you. Yeah.
And I was just thinking on the way over here, I turned 78, but I'm in good shape.
Thank God, you know, yeah.
In great shape, and that's because I haven't really hit them cigarettes since my early 20s.
And hard liquor and all that, and all the other stuff.
18 and 23, I virtually was halfway an alcoholic.
Yeah,
to be honest with you.
Yeah.
Well, and refilled everything else.
Yeah, I hear you.
But I purged my life of all of that in my 20s, and thank God for that.
Well, you know, sometimes, and you know, and Scripture implies and talks about that in Proverbs, that sometimes, you know, in order for you to save somebody, you have to have lived that lifestyle so you can reach them, you know, and to be able to tell them, look, I know where you've been, I know where you are, I've been there, and I came out of it. You know, that's a big difference.
Experience a taste of that.
Yes, sir. The grace of God.
The Son story talks about he got to the level where the swine do eat. And believe me, brother,
I'm going home.
I was dying to know where the swine
Yeah.
I was dying to know where the swine do eat. Yes, sir.
Well, I know how it is. Yes, sir. I tell you. Well, so it's been a while since you've been on, and there's been a lot of different initiatives that you've come across, but you've been consistent on what many of us have come to know as what is called the process.
The process, that's right.
So where are we? How's it going? Where are we now?
Well, I think the biggest thing when you're in an overall environment of negativity, be it regardless of what end of the political pole you're on, it tends to promote a general cynicism in people, a kind of defeatism. They can sit back and criticize things with the news media, and as Dr. King said, but you could get caught up in the paralysis of analysis. So the last few years, we've been trying to put together a black belt wide and even a national team to help with this process.
Well, international too, really, huh?
Yeah, international. And so that's been a slow process. But we have put that apparatus together, and now we actually ready to take it to phase 2, where we actually do the work. And to that end, we having an official kickoff weekend out at Wallace College, and we'll have people in town from all over the Black Belt, all over Alabama, and some from parts beyond. And our goal is to, most of our organizing have been by Zoom. So our first goal is for all of us to come together and meet each other. We have a fantastic Wall Street type operative financier, a brother out of Huntsville, a dynamic young man, graduated from the Air Force Academy. Very few people here in our movement in the Black Belt has ever met him. They seen him on Zoom. So this gonna be a chance where the whole team get a chance to associate with each other, to press palms, to look at each other eyeball to eyeball, to embrace it.
Yeah, it makes a difference. It's good to be able to, be in person.
And then the second goal is to educate, because people have different understanding as to what this process and movement is all about. Hopefully when we leave this weekend, we'll be on the same page, and we can operate as laser focused in terms of implementing some of our strategies to advance the life, not just in Selma, but primarily throughout the Alabama Black Belt.
Now, I understand you also have several mayors from different cities in the Black Belt that are participating.
Yeah, we have a very, very committed mayor of a small town. I call him Dr. Mel Gordon. And for some reason, he's very influential with the other mayors. He doesn't represent a big city, but he has been very influential in bringing in several mayors in this process. Even the Honorable Stephen Reed out of Montgomery. And one of our goals is that we have a new mayor that's very open, that's very amenable to collaborative time, working with folk, open door policy. And we're going to reciprocate that posture his by, at our reception on Friday evening, rolling him out to the other leaders in the Black Belt into our national apparatus. And we'll have a series of panels on Saturday. And I look forward to the panel where the former clerk and now entrepreneur, Jackie Smith, myself, the current president pro tem of the Selma City Council, Honorable Michael Johnson, and the president, we're going to discuss the topic, how does private sector process interface with public sector municipal government? Public partnerships. That's right. And Michael Johnson was very instrumental in helping me get elected that first time. He took me around in East Selma. He's familiar with a perfect time where municipal government was working along with community to advance the quality of life in East Selma. Jackie Smith was the clerk at that time, and she saw all the operations from the recruitment of weed and seed to bringing in Fannie Mae Enterprise Foundation. So she's going to be very informative as well. And of course, as city councilman at the time, I have a wealth of information to bring to that panel on that Saturday. And we'll have several panels. So Saturday will be a day of definition, a day of education, where we solidify what this process and movement is all about and educate the new people that are coming in and want to work with this movement. So Friday is simple. Associate, network, associate with each other. Saturday, educate each other. And we're looking for a wonderful event. Members of our San Diego team, of course, will be here. The Honorable Stedman Graham and Dr. Carson has a prior commitment with some men in Sacramento, California, but they will be with us via Zoom on that Friday evening, kicking off our reception. Yeah, it's amazing.
They're still They're still involved.
Still involved. And more committed than ever.
Yeah, that's good. And of course, for those who may or may not be familiar with Stedman Graham, he is an author and a motivational speaker in his own right. He also happens to be the other half of Oprah Winfrey. And just the knowledge and seeing.
You know what he told us? You was at the meeting down near the Reflection building next door. He told us that if you get a blueprint, we'll market it. So I'll be responsible. What he was implying, when Oprah came here, you all wanted her to put a bunch of money in Selma. It's just the implication in my mind.
I got you.
But she didn't do it because you didn't have nothing.
There was nothing for her.
All you had was a bunch of lip service.
And a lot of photo ops.
That's right. And these people with resources, they're not going to invest in a bunch of hustling con talk.
They know better. They know better. They have seen the big picture.
Just like it was a person I'm not gonna even get into that. But came in here and con Selma. And I remember one day, Mass Middleman, late Mass Middleman, called me in his office. And he set me down. He said, Salam, I don't know what's wrong with my town, but my town is a sucker for the con, man. He was complaining about a brother who was new in town trying to come in his office and shake him down for some city money, And he called me in and was talking about it. And at the time, the person was a con man, but in time, this person came to love Selma and just came down to earth and just was a good, productive Selma. But so these people been around too long.
Well,
You're
Selma's
not going to shake
tempting.
them down with money and then run off and blow it.
Right.
You're going to have to
make something happen.
You're going to have to have a plan.
Right.
Yeah, but now, they didn't leave us alone to come up with this blueprint. They provided us with a doctor in cultural anthropology who knew where all the bodies were buried in terms of social movement anatomy. And you may have participated on some. We have several Zooms where there was an interchange between the local folk and the black belt, what we wanted and what she suggested. And a beautiful document has been hammered out, and that's going to be publicly revealed on
that Saturday, on the Friday.
Reception.
Okay.
Yes.
Well, that sounds.
So I'm encouraged, and these people that work with us, I'm talking about locally for 2 years, and we haven't received a dime of grant money, not one dime.
No, I hear you.
And I don't want any.
But that's not what you want.
I don't want any grant money because all it would do would attract the hustlers.
The hustlers,
the schemers.
Right. Yeah.
They got a hand out. You understand? Right. Want to get in something, rip it off,
and move on
and go do that
the next one. Yeah.
So if you're not sincere, you're not gonna fool with this. Cause there's not a whole lot of grant money for you to steal.
You know,
You see,
I played the "I Have a Dream" or the last 10 minutes of the "I Have a Dream" speech earlier in the week, and I had it on YouTube and was pulling up the video, and I started again studying the backdrop and looking at the hundreds the dozens of people that were really with Dr. King on the stage and their expressions and the inspiration, and then the thousands of people, on the Lincoln Mall and what their expressions were, And so at the end of the day, the people have to want something. You know what I mean?
Well, I call that the height of the human goodness of America. And when I say that, not just black folk, but I've seen clips too. There was a lot of whites out there and other ethnicities that really was into the moment.
They were into that.
And they were into the moment. They were inspired. They had aspirations to see America realize those ideals that he articulated. But as I told you when we were talking informally, that move toward goodness began to reverse in 1964. And it's been decades since then that now we find in America where it's hard to find any goodness in people's hearts anywhere. And that's not a political thing. We like to divide it into polemics, Democrats attacking the Republicans, and vice versa. No, that's something that's problematic in America. Where has all the goodness gone in American people? Where's it gone, my brother?
I can't answer that, buddy. I tell you, I think about it and am concerned, and at the end of the day, though, social media and the media in general has changed and contributes to, in my opinion, creating that kind of an environment. So my question, because and I know I've seen them, unfortunately, a lot of the decision makers, a lot of the news directors in these newsrooms, a lot of the general managers over these major media conglomerates, their hearts are not where their predecessors were in the 60s. They're nowhere near,
Well, they are not professional journalists. They are money makers. And to be honest with you, they understand that when the people move away from goodness. Now, I said it started in 64, but it really accelerated 2 years later in April of 66 when Time magazine put out that article that God is dead. You see, so even the journalists back then, worldly people, the politicians, they had to project some level of public human goodness, even though behind the scene they may have had a different agenda. We've lost that. So the way to make money is through sensationalism.
That's the bottom line.
And so it's not objective journalism anymore. No. Everything is sensationalism, keeping the viewer on the edge of their seat, worried about the next sensational happening in America.
The key word is worries. They keep us worried, huh?
And I got a granddaughter call me at least twice a week. Papa, what's going on? What's going on? In a state of anxiety. And it's only through spiritual massaging that I can get her to chill a little bit. People in a state of anxiety, man, with all this stuff.
I think you hit it on the head when you talk about spiritualism. So a couple of weeks ago, we had the Buddhist monks visited Selma on their peace walk, from Fort Worth, Texas to Washington, D.C. And I often try and point out that Selma is an international city. In addition to you being an attorney and a former elected official, you're also an imam for the local masjid. How are things going? How would you describe your masjid?
Things are going well. One of the things I'm trying to do now is to have an open policy where the younger men are learning to express this message. And we try to be on the same page where we advocate the Quranic posture of moderation. And we're not about allowing Islamic extremism to become a part of the Selma Islamic experience. And we have people from all over the world. One of our dedicated members is from Palestine. Last week, we have monies because these are businessmen, and we have monies in our treasury. He was in charge of these monies before we left the country. I was in Atlanta. He went by Drano and dropped a large sum of monies in charity for him to preserve just in case there was an emergency. Now, a lot of these folk from other ethnicities in America, if they going somewhere, they said if a black man is the last one
That's not going to happen, huh?
No, that's not going to happen. So I bring it up to say that some of these folk, even though they have been influenced by racial bigotry, don't let anybody fool you. But when they come to Selma, they have to adopt the tone of the Islamic tenor that we've been advocating now for over 3 decades. And so because of that, they feel safe, they feel secure.
Well, you've developed some trust, evidently.
Yeah.
You know.
And they chill about the country, you know. I think one was deported. And all of these years, a young guy from Pakistan, a good brother, we looked up one day and he had been deported. But none of that extremism, none of that terrorism, none of that kind of talk in the Selma Islamic Center. So we have a pretty solid community because of that. From all over the world.
I got you. Yeah, I got you. I've met a few, and I kind of watch from a distance. And here recently though, I'll tell you what. When the new mayor of New York won, I thought about you because you almost won, and you were almost mayor of Selma. You ran for mayor of Selma.
But what really should be highlighted, they made a big deal about Mandani being sworn in on the Quran. That was a national story. But right here in Selma, Alabama, in 1992, I was sworn in on the Quran when I became a city councilman. Joe T. Smillerman, Mayor Carl Morgan, Rita Franklin, the late Gene Martin, the late Glenn Sexton, the late Bill King, the late MacArthur Williams, and Mark West did not say a mumbling word. They all took pictures with me that day. 4 years later, this same group, different races, different religious persuasion, they voted me in as President Pro Tem of the Selma City Council unanimously, not one dissent.
That's a story.
What am I saying? Selma in that sense was more advanced than these big cities up north.
A long time ago. I recognized that years ago. And the other thing is you didn't change your name. Now there are a few Muslim politicians. You wouldn't know they're Islamic or Muslim in faith because their last name is Smith or Williams. But you stayed you kept being yourself, and you were elected really the first Muslim in Selma, I think statewide.
Let's be objective. Now I think history has settled a lot of things. Time. People argue about who's this and who's the good candidate, who's the good mayor. But now, after 25 years since I left government, we can observe objectively the state of Selma. And I think a objective historical conclusions can be drawn. That does not depend upon I like this person or I don't like this person. Objective facts now in time have been established, and anybody with an open mind can see who was a dud as a politician, who was a lemon, who did not produce in this town, and who did. It's not a matter of support or non-support. History and time
Well,
has established
this is the
that.
conclusion I've come to, and it also reflects the way I see the national landscape as well. At the end of the day, and I'm going to use one of your favorite terms, the science of politics. Whoever has, unfortunately, who's got the most money and resources and puts together a good strategic campaign, many times ends up winning at the end of the day. And sometimes because I say many of us, some of us, we've learned how to win elections, but have we learned how to govern?
Well, that's the problem. Now, the question you asked about changing name, let's face it, when I hit Selma, I was in my mid-30s. I had been around for a long time. I did not hit Selma to run for office, but with what I knew, you talking about a name, it would have been very easy for me to get a church. I could preach. People didn't really know nothing about Yusuf Salam. I could have gone back to my other
Sales, huh?
Yeah.
You could run Ruby Sales' brother, huh?
Got me a church, got me a nice Cadillac. I was a lawyer, rode around Selma in fancy suits, and probably would have ended up in a high office without even struggling. And there were people who actually came to me. I'm not going to call the name publicly. Set me down at a table for dinner and told me, Salam, if you come back to the church, then we will support you. I guess he called it representing the white voters in Selma. I don't know who he represented, who this we was, but that's what he told me. And I thought the whole proposition was so absurd. What religious person, if they believe
if you're committed to your
would abandon that belief system just to get a little political office in this small town? If I had done that, most of the people who respected me, they never could have respected me again, and I don't blame them. So with Yusuf Salam, with my position, didn't hide it, with my religion, I won some and I lost some.
In the Bible Belt, we might.
Yeah, in the Bible Belt, I won more than I lost. When you run for state representative, you have to run at that time in a district of 40,000 Dallas counties. And when I won with that same name, with that same religion, I won. I beat a candidate that was sponsored by the dominant African American powers at the time. There was a good young man, and I call his name because he's a good man. The Honorable Mark Story. He was running on the Republican ticket. When I defeated the African American in the primary, the whites could have said, well, we've gotten rid of these 4 candidates now, we're going to vote Republican. But they came to me and said, Yusuf, I know you think we're going to abandon you and vote Republican for Mark. But they did not do that. And that's a good thing, because the African American that I defeated in the primary refused to drop out and became a write-in candidate. She couldn't win, but it could have helped the Republican get the seat. And so I guarantee you that kind of dynamic has not happened anywhere in America where that kind of support was given to a openly avowed Muslim candidate. So personally, I don't have any complaint.
Yeah, let's step back. Let's step back a little bit, because you're a historian. You were a professor of history. You know, I have a lot of conversations with people, and I know the difference. I know when somebody knows history and when they don't, because I'm a student of history. And so I'm mindful of the fact that when the Constitution originally was written, everybody was not a Christian that was a part of that process. And as I understand it, there was some reverence and respect for the Islamic faith. I think we had one or two atheists.
Yeah, that's right. Well, James Madison in Virginia, and Jefferson in Virginia, their state Virginia had passed a Religious Freedom Act, and they craft the First Amendment to the Constitution primarily based upon that act. And they didn't call folk Muslim back then. They either called them Ottomans or Turks, because at the time the Ottoman Empire
was dominant.
Was very dominant on the world stage. And so they made it clear that this democracy would be for Christians. They mentioned Jews, and when it came to Muslims, they said Ottomans or Turks. That's a historical fact. It's not debatable.
No, and I think that's important to keep in mind. But again, the narrative that we get, see, that's what keeps us divided. And the whole point of religious freedom and separation of church and state, again, it's all right to know how to win an election, but what about governing? And what do we need to be focused on in terms of improving the quality of life? And, in fact, here recently, and I referenced yesterday or the day before, talked about, the Nation of Islam under Elijah Muhammad during the time when they were preaching, the blue-eyed devil, that all white folks were evil. Then about a week or two ago, there's a white woman that has really been coming down on her own people, on white folks and white men, but come to find out, she's atheist. She doesn't believe in God. You know what I mean?
Right.
And ignoring all the other things. This country is not innocent, and slavery was a bad mark on the nation, but a more perfect union, being able to correct the mistakes of the past and try to move forward and create a better society.
Well, the country, all the founding fathers had a concept of natural law. And they understood that if you study nature, everything starts off on a rudimentary level, and that there's a growth process, a transformational process, an evolutionary process, not in the Darwinian sense, but everything evolved. So a nation is the same way. You don't expect for a nation to start off perfect. Over time, there should be an effort to perfect the ideals of that nation, to bring the reality as close as possible to the ideal. There's never going to be a perfect match in an individual life or a nation life where the ideal and the real has met. It's not going to happen. Even in the Christian life, that's not going to happen. In the Muslim life, the only time it happened was in the ideal of Jesus was met and Jesus walked by Jesus. Same thing about the ideal of the Quran. It was met in the walk of Prophet Muhammad. No other Muslim has ever matched that. No other Christian brother has ever brought the ideal teachings of Jesus to perfect expression in the flesh. Show me one.
I can't do it.
Show me one. I certainly can't claim that I've been around near brought the ideal of Quran to perfection in my expression in my walk.
Well, look, I better take this break, and then when we come back, make sure that we cover anything that you want to cover. Go ahead.
I appreciate your questioning, brother. You're doing a great job, and I like your relaxed posture this morning, and what have you.
The Proverbs says,
me in that same posture.
Look, with all thy getting, get understanding.
Yeah,
you know what I mean.
Yeah.
And I'm hoping that we can end the kind of negative environment, and people need to understand this thing is much bigger than what many of us see, and there's a lot at stake. And Selma can play a positive role even in the national conversation. Here we are. This is what 2026. This is our 250th birthday celebration. We need to get back to basics. You know what I'm saying?
And that's 1/4 of a millennium, 1/4 of 1,000 years.
Yeah, and people forget now. China and Russia, neither one of them. Now, I guess the people, anybody who questions the effectiveness of socialism or communism, we now have been around as a democracy 250 years. Now, China's civilization is 2,000 years old, but how many revolutions? Not in this current. That's what I'm talking about. In every 20 or 30 years, they have a revolution.
Yeah. Well, I think that this current form has been since 1949.
See,
but really, the Soviet Union been there for about 70 years, man.
That's what I'm talking about.
The Bolshevik Revolution in 1917, the roughly 1988, 1999.
Well, and a lot of people may not realize the first Bloody Sunday was in Russia, but they killed people. People died, on Bloody Sunday in Russia in the early 1900s, and so, and I'm mindful, I'm mindful of that.
That's something to think about.
Yeah. That's why I'm watching Mandani in New York. I want to see what happens over the next 4 years, if he's able to do anything.
Let me see. I think there's promise, but this is my opinion. I've studied this matter. In time, the immigrant tends to misunderstand culturally the American landscape. It's not like you and I who have ancestors that go back to the very beginning of this country and been trying to cope with making America a better place. So you take the fella on the other side that's an Indian, Vivek Ramaswamy. He miscalculated basically certain realities about America. And I'm hoping that Mandani doesn't make that mistake.
Well, but
from what I can tell, he's a decent human being.
He probably is not going to make that mistake. I don't think so.
If he doesn't, then he's going to make a positive contribution to this nation.
Well, I've studied his posture when he and President Trump met, and both of them had talked a lot of trash about each other. But look at how they were able to be civil.
Because he didn't feel that his manhood was on the line. His folk been men for hundreds of years. As African American, he would have been under the pressure of going in there and showing the black folk that he could be ugly with Trump.
Insecure.
Yeah, that's right. So I'm a man. I'm gonna thin up the Donald Trump. No. See, Mandani was not under that pressure, and Donald Trump knew that. Well, so Donald Trump acted pro quo, mano mano. He was very peaceful with Mandani. And that's why. So this whole thing is.
Well, that's what I mean too. You see, and that's a big mistake a lot of Selmians have made. Is they will judge black leadership based upon how many white folks you disagree with. Well, that don't mean nothing because I might be wrong.
That's right.
What if I'm wrong? What if they're right?
How many good people you can stand up for truth with?
Now that's what I'm talking about.
That's what you do.
Well, the narrative wants us not to be paying. We don't want to pay attention to that. But what profit a man to gain the soul? I mean, to gain the world and lose the soul.
The one thing about Mandani and what you're not dealing with is that there was a Muslim brother that was formerly in the Central Park 5. 2 years ago, he was elected to the New York City
to the city council.
And you know what his name is?
No.
Yusuf Salam.
Oh, Lord.
So I got a whole lot of calls from people in the black belt asking me had I moved to New York.
Well, I do remember that. I know that there's a Yusuf Salam out of New York, but I didn't realize that he was. I haven't been really, watching New York.
Yeah, he's on the city council.
Yeah, but I do know that there was. I knew that there was a city council person I had heard that was influential and that was behind the scenes, making some things happen.
What my plan is there was a young lady that was in high school as a senior when I was at the University of Georgia. And she learned a lot of things from me politically. And she was on this guy's, Yusuf Salam's
campaign.
And she told him about me because we still communicate. So she's in the process of arranging for me to come up there and meet this other Yusuf Salam. But in the meantime, I'm not going up there and meet him and not try to meet.
Oh, you know they wouldn't do that.
So that would be a waste of trip. So I plan to try to meet both of them, to be honest with you.
Well, that'll be good.
And I'm going to try to link what they're doing in New York with what we're doing in Selma. We have to have these kinds of national and international ties.
Relationships.
Yeah, what we're doing, yes. Yeah. Matter of fact, go ahead and take
let's take this break and then we'll be back. Let's pay a few bills and we'll be back in a few minutes. Our guest this morning, Attorney Yusuf Salam. This is kind of a relaxed, impromptu conversation. Attorney Salam comes on from time to time, and we do intend we want him to come back and keep us abreast on the efforts of the process and what's happening throughout the Black Belt and its ties to the international community. We'll be back with more after these messages. Yeah, man. We're still on YouTube. Yeah, so I think so. Because we're from and even our audience is expanding in terms of YouTube. So we're really national. You know what I mean? And so you never know who is going to be seeing this, right? And it's important. People need to broaden their horizon and perspective. And so and you've got that knowledge. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about that. And the fact that, as you pointed out, some of the things that you've done when you were city council person and state representative is historic. But it was never really talked about like it should have been.
That's right. I mean, people take that stuff for granted, but those was unusual.
That's significant. Yeah. And out Selma, Alabama?
Yeah, 40,000 voters that you got to try to convince.
It was not just black, white support too.
Yeah.
As a Muslim.
Yeah. And in the second election, there were 4 Christian candidates out there running against me.
And they ran on that, huh?
And I won without a runoff. In Dallas County, won without a runoff.
And I know they were pushing the religious card to try and.
Well, finally they got me with Derry when he came along with his campaign card with his preacher collar on and all that. I don't know what made the whites abandon me at that time, but I was walking down the hall in Montgomery, and the head of the Baptist Association came up to me and told me, I don't know whether or not we can support you this time. So I don't know.
I've forgotten what happened, and I think there was a vote too, though, for the increase of the salaries or something. There may have been a couple of little things that were not on the radar screen, that were factors.
Yeah, well, and David Perry came up to me and said, man, I went to a meeting of the pastors. And F.L. Williams out there meeting with these folks, and they scheming to get your seat. So I saw this guy named Stacy that was over Caucasian at the downtown. I came up and asked him, I said, brother told me y'all was scheming to turn against me this time. He didn't deny it. But he never did. Mama something about gambling, but I never did support a gambling deal, so I don't know what.
Well, as you know, rumors and false narratives and misinformation, that's common, I guess, in a lot of campaigns. And
But the
so,
amazing thing is that Dario ended up having a debacle of a political career, one that he probably not going to ever be able to recover from.
well, it was something that people needed to learn. It's something that people needed to learn. Well, we're still a work in progress, and so
Man, it
yeah,
was something that gave him win that election.
yeah.
So,
Here we go. 1490 WHBB. I remember once, attorney, I went with you to the State House, and and this was when I think the Democrats were still had the majority, still had some power.
yeah, I remember that.
But the reception that you received by both black and whites, Democrat and Republicans, I was impressed with, because it told me you had built relationships across the aisle.
The Republicans were very supportive of me, not so much in the sense that we actually got together and voted on a lot of bills, but they just had a lot of respect for me. We're not on the air.
Yeah.
Yeah, I give an example. I call this guy named guy from Mobile. We were seatmates. Said his name. I never will forget him. Two examples of this thing. His name was Joe Fowles. And Mobile paper did an interview with me, and the people in Mobile area read it. And there was a Mobilian who read the article, and she called Representative Fowles and got on him, why you all letting a Muslim be in the Alabama State House? And Fowles came back and told me, said, Salam, I told her, said, don't you ever call me about this man. This man is a good man, and I'm going to, and I don't want to ever hear you talking about it like this. Another example was the first day I was over there. There's this strong sister out of Huntsville. Her name is Representative Laura Hopper. She gets up and go down to the pit, because this is the kind of person she is. She told all the state representatives, so you all gonna have to watch how you talk now, because we got a man over here of another faith. Now, the average person would have appreciated that, but I saw it as being a little nuanced. And to me, there was a wiser position to take. And so after she said that, I went down, first time going in the pit, and I told the people, I say, look, you all believe in the 10 Commandments? I believe in the 10 Commandments. You all believe in Jesus? I believe in Jesus. This is a true story. So, because I'm over here, doesn't mean that you have to change your posture and be on aid. I appreciate what my sister was trying to do, but that's not necessary. After that meeting, walking down the hall, and this Caucasian Republican woman out of North Alabama, she came up to me. She was actually crying. She was actually crying. And she told me, I'm glad she told me that there was not a whole lot of difference in our religion. Another example was that we used to go down to the pit, and there was a white lawyer that had gone to Harvard. he was a Democrat. And there was this Republican guy that been over there a lot, and he understood all the bills. And my mama was over there with me one day. She came to visit. He came up to her and told her, your son read all the bills. There's this guy from Harvard get up and talk and say, your son know more about these bills and the law than he does. The truth of the matter is, nobody read all those bills because you didn't have time. The bills were so thick. But they had a synopsis.
You're trained, you know how to do all that.
And see, they had a synopsis of the bill, 2 or 3 paragraphs, and I used to read the synopsis, and I could understand what the bill was all about. So when I went down to the pit, they actually thought I had read the whole bill. But that's not the point. The point is that this guy respected me enough to down this white Harvard representative and to suggest to my mama that I understood more about the legislative process than he did. That was 3 Republicans. That was 3 Republicans, not the Democrats. This was they would do. The same lady. We were out eating one night for dinner when I first came over there. And she saw me drinking something. She actually came over and sniffed my glass. And she said, brother, I'm glad you were not drinking because I did not want you to be a phony about what you were doing. So the African-American Democrat, all they wanted me to do was to live up to my image of trying to be a good man, a good Muslim.
I got you.
And I got a lot of respect.
And it helps to be an attorney, I think. If you're going to be a state representative, a lawmaker, I think you need to have either a background in law or understanding of it. You know what I mean?
You have to have it. And some of my more productive conversations that I had over there was with the late Milton McGregor. We didn't talk about no gambling. We talked about Alabama. We talked about politics. We talked about life. Couldn't no rookie walk up in these men's offices without no appointment. The late Paul Hubbard, the same way.
I remember meeting him here once. In fact, we went to dinner. We all went to dinner together.
Paul Hubbard could go up in there, same thing. And the conservative guy that was over the business council, he represented a lot of Republicans. I could go up in there and I could talk. And the Speaker of the House, the Honorable Seth Hammond, I used to talk to him all the time. And he said, Salam, I'm going to tell you, you and him beating around the bush. He said, but I understand your situation. And you're doing a good job, but you're going to be limited because he called the name of a powerful Democrat. He said, as long as you're over here, he's going to be an albatross around your neck. Meaning, I'm going to try to help you, Salam, but I have to work with
the reality of politics.
I have to work with him.
Well, look.
And so that's the kind of stuff that go on behind the scenes that media doesn't cover.
That's what I'm talking about.
That's where government actually happens. That's where governance happen. And one of the problems is that these folk around here, they run for and campaign and do the politics, but don't have a clue how to govern.
That's the problem. See?
And so for 25 years, there has not evolved an understanding as to how to govern. I'm hoping with our new chief executive, that problem will finally be correct.
I think he's certainly making the right steps.
I'm somewhat
encouraged.
Encouraged.
I am too. I think he has the right temperament, and we should support him and give him space. You know what I mean?
He's not confrontational like the 25-year period of Selma politics. I myself got a kind of confrontational nature. But right now, Selma doesn't need a leader like that. Selma needs a leader with his kind of temperament
that can bring people
work,
together.
that can bring people together.
Look,
and I told him that.
Yeah, we're out of time. Matter of fact, we went over this morning, but and we're going to have you come back, and then we want to certainly report what happens on the 17th and 18th that weekend at Wallace Community College.
I love to come back, and hopefully I can be of service by informing the people exactly what was achieved.
And then we'll let them know what the plan is. Thank you so much, Attorney, for coming. We'll see you the next time. Happy New Year.
Thank you for having me, my friend.